Inline surge protection is, you have a surge protection device at the camera, and then you have your Ethernet cabling going back to your head end, and then you have another surge protection device before your head end.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us again for another session of the In the Trenches Roundtable. Today's episode, I think, is extremely exciting because it's something that comes up more often than you'd think, but I don't think it's thought about from the beginning. And what I mean is surge. What is it? What does it mean? Who should be concerned and why? Those are some of the things that we'll be diving into today. And of course, we've got a great panel of experts with us. We've got Micah Shear, our COO.
Hi.
We've got Gil Leskis. He's our National Installation Director.
Hi, everybody.
And last but certainly not least, we've got Cal Brewer. He's our National Project Manager.
Hey, everyone.
Awesome. Between the three of them, we've got plenty of experience here. We're quasi-experts in surge, at least what it means for IP security devices. And that's what kind of we'll be jumping into. So I want to start off by just kind of level setting and making sure everyone's on the same page. What is surge and why should I be worried?
Well, surge is just a wave of power in an electrical circuit that is just too much for the devices to handle. And you should be concerned because it can completely destroy your IP security equipment.
Wow. Where do surges come from exactly then?
Well, surges come from a variety of places. Externally, the most common is going to be lightning strikes. They could come from a direct lightning strike to a camera, a direct hit, or it can hit your house or your building, or it could come from a lightning strike kind of in the proximity of your facility. Internally, it comes from inductive loads or like poor wiring causing a ground fault in your wiring, or simply just plugging in too many devices to your surge protector.
Gotcha.
You can also get issues with the grid itself. I mean, if your local grid is not always completely stable, especially depending on where you're located, and you can get surges coming externally.
Makes sense. So there's ways it can come externally, it's ways it can come internally. It can ruin my devices if it happens. Is it covered under warranty though?
No. The short answer is no. If your
How do you
device
prove
that
that?
counts as an act of God, essentially.
How
What'd
do
you
you
say,
prove
Gil?
that, though? How do you prove
I
that?
mean, it's not that hard to tell if a device has been fried when our technical support team gets
Smell
it back.
test?
Yeah, there's a.
Give a good sniff.
Well, how would you describe that odor, Cal?
Yeah, like a bad barbecue. I would say like a bad barbecue.
Okay.
So if you're really bad at barbecuing, maybe you can get away with it. But otherwise, it's going to be evident.
Okay. Gotcha. Not covered under warranty, but sounds like, is this something that happens common? Like, should I expect my camera to be struck by lightning?
Depends on the area that you live. I mean, obviously the southeastern United States is going to be a little bit more common, Florida especially. They have a lot more lightning strikes each, day, month, during the summer than we do in the other parts of the United States.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And I know Gil we were talking before this about having a lot of experience in certain parts of the country where the grid itself is more unstable.
Yeah, that's that back end stuff that we talk about. That's probably a little harder to tell if surge damaged the device, to be honest, because you're not going to have that direct got blowed up smell to it. It's going to be the electronics were affected, the motherboard got flashed, something weird like that. Because remember when some of these devices, like an NVR, an example, when it just shuts down without actually being powered down properly, it's like a car crash. So when surge hits the system and knocks the recorders offline, it can affect the electronics, But like I said, a little bit tougher to prove, but at the same time it happens, and it's why surge protection is available.
Can we stay on that topic for just a second, or that type of surge, and talk mitigation for just a second? Because that's the one that feels to me like the easiest to standardize your approach to, in a sense. Like if you're dealing with an unstable grid or something like that, I mean, pretty much putting your NVR, putting your switches on a surge protection device, they're not that much more expensive. You're not talking about additional labor, which reduces the cost there. And that's the one where I would say it's pretty much prudent to always do this. We really like when we're doing the installation ourselves, these network addressable ones where we can remotely log in and power things off and on and do troubleshooting as well. But as long as it is a surge protection that is properly rated for the voltage you're dealing with, you can pretty much use any surge protector.
So
Right.
you're surge protector. You're saying there's a way to save from the surge ruining my devices? Because I was getting worried there for a minute. I'm like starting to sweat over here, thinking that all my devices are screwed.
Well,
But there's a
lightning
way to
is
save 'em?
trickier, so I'd kind of want to put that one in a different bucket for a second. But if the surge is coming basically from your outlet, because there's something on your, in your house or your building or something on the grid, yeah, you can get a surge protector. Don't confuse it with a power strip. A power strip is just adding a lot of outlets, essentially, a lot of extra plugs. But a surge protector is specifically designed to absorb at least a certain amount of electricity or energy.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I
And
know,
when you
Cal,
add
Gil, do
that,
you have any tips in selecting that surge
Well,
protector?
well, not necessarily. I mean, surge protection is just it's just gonna block the overcurrent from happening when it's being drawn. But to stop, dirty power, brownouts, blackouts from affecting your electronic devices, that's where UPS, an uninterruptible power source, comes in, because those things will just not shut down at that point. They will be able to manage the actual spike in electrical, which causes the surge, and it might shut it down before, but if it's on a UPS, it'll keep it running. Therefore, that car crash isn't happening.
Is a UPS so UPS is considered a type of a surge
No,
protector?
UPS is considered something that keeps the power going.
Gotcha.
So if there is a spike in electricity, it will handle that and absorb it and
Maybe
not transmit that to the device.
Understood.
Yes. So a traditional surge protector, and Gil and Cal, please correct me if I'm wrong here. That overage hits the surge protector shuts off, which creates that sudden loss of power in the NVR. The NVR is not then getting it's not absorbing the impact of that power, but it is abruptly being turned off. And most electronics do not like being abruptly turned off. Probably going to be fine, but there is not a small chance that you can get issues that result of that abrupt loss of power. When you combine surge protection with a UPS or an uninterruptible power supply, you've got a battery in that UPS that holds some extra energy so that you can do a graceful shutdown of the device. They're not meant to sit there and typically, though, I mean, you can, you get big enough ones, you can run the NVR for hours. They're not necessarily there to run that device for hours and hours and hours. They're there to run that device long enough to facilitate that graceful shutdown.
What I'm hearing is surge protection can come from internal sources, and that might be more of a concern than lightning protection.
In
No, I
most
think
parts of the
it's
country.
different.
And
Yeah,
other parts of the
well,
country.
it also,
Okay.
it also depends on where you are. If you're in Florida,
Okay.
you probably got to be equally concerned about lightning strikes, if not more so.
And it also depends on how you have your cameras mounted as well. I mean, if you have your cameras mass mounted so you can achieve a better line of sight, then basically you have a lightning rod on your building, and you should definitely be concerned at that point.
Yeah.
Are there ways I can protect devices from lightning strikes?
Well, not necessarily protect the devices. You can protect your NVR and your head-end devices from lightning strikes taken by the camera using inline surge protection. Now, inline surge protection is, you have a surge protection device at the camera, and then you have your Ethernet cabling going back to your head-end, and then you have another surge protection device before your head-end. Now, those protection devices, say your camera gets hit by lightning, you're going to lose the camera, and you're going to lose the first inline surge protection device that you have there because they're self-sacrificing. That's where we go back to the bad barbecue smell. But yeah, I mean, I kind of forgot what you asked there.
No, but there's ways to protect the devices from lightning strikes. Or
yeah, I mean, because what you
sources
really don't want to have happen is it hits the camera, it travels down your cable, it takes out your switch, it keeps going, it takes out 2 more cameras. I mean, it's a bit of a catastrophic example, but you need to stop it before it affects other parts of the system as well, and that's where that inline surge protection will help. The other thing with an inline surge protection is a lightning strike doesn't have to just hit the camera. It could hit it could hit the cable. And if you've got surge protection on both ends of that cable, then it hits the cable and it gets absorbed through those devices. I mean, they're really little. They're like this big. And you just
they're not very
literally
expensive.
plug it in and plug it in again.
A lightning strike can hit the street and still affect the camera lines, basically. It doesn't actually, you rarely see a direct hit on a camera. When you do, that's a different animal.
Gotcha. So it might hit like the corner of my building or something.
Yeah,
or
you
maybe
usually
a tree
see
nearby.
surge going down. There's from lightning strikes hitting near. Yeah,
I see. Okay. But that inline surge protection protects the devices after the device that gets directly affected.
Yep.
Typically,
because worst case, you like if you didn't have that inline, it could maybe hit the switch that the other cameras are connected to, and
it could travel back to your NVR. It could travel from your NVR through an HDMI cord to your TV. It could take out any device that you have, you know, basically in your structure there. Just keep traveling down the line.
And these devices do help and they do work, but they're not 100%.
And how much are they? Like, is it worth it? I don't know. I'm just wondering.
The device itself is not that expensive. You're looking at, what is it, $60 for a pair? Where you are actually going to see an increase in cost is the labor to install them. Because you are installing them and you are grounding them. You're talking about running some extra cabling, potentially a grounding rod. So because of that, we do end up being strategic, because if you're paying as much for the camera as you are for the grounding, you end up having to weigh this, you know, this equation. What is my risk of this getting hit? And is it more or less than just buying a new camera?
Care less about cameras and care more about recorders and
switches and infrastructure. Yeah. I mean, well, we typically are putting a surge protection device. Well, usually it's before it's from the plug to the switch. So if it gets hit along that line without the inline surge protection, then that doesn't actually help you. So you sort of have to map out, like, all right, where are all the risk points? Where are all my devices that are in place to mitigate it? How much do each of those devices cost, both in the actual equipment and the labor? And what is the cost of the equipment that I'm protecting? And then you layer in the likelihood, basically, of something bad happening. We end up making a lot of strategic decisions around things like storage units. Like, we won't inline surge protect all of the cameras because that just gets astronomical, but we will all of the wireless backhaul antennas, because they're sticking up over the top of the building and are, as Cal referenced earlier, basically a lightning rod. So it makes sense economically to ground the antennas. It makes less sense economically to surge protect the antennas. It makes less sense economically to surge protect all of the cameras.
Gotcha. So kind of a cost analysis in a sense.
Yeah.
And would someone like SCW be able to help with that, or is that all on the client organization? No, okay.
No, we can help with that for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, where we're going to be a little less able to help you assess your risk is things like your internal wiring on your building. Like, do you have a history of devices getting fried? Like, we don't really know that. Do you have a history? You know, is your network, or are you in someplace in California that's constantly having brownouts? We don't have that insight. We would need to lean on your knowledge of your own facility in that context.
Gotcha.
There are also lightning mitigation companies that you know, that's what they do, is they assess the risk, and they give you a solution.
So it sounds like customers in high lightning prone areas should probably, you know, consider it a little bit more. Also sounds like places where that might experience brownouts or rolling blackouts should consider these type of things. And is it easier?
I'd almost say older buildings as well.
I was just going to ask, is it harder to retrofit older buildings with surge protection, or is it not?
I wouldn't say so, because most of the surge protection is designed as a sort of a layering on in a similar way to a retrofit. What I meant by older buildings is just like your circuitry is older, more prone to have issues versus a new build where everything's clean and crisp and recently inspected.
Well, makes me feel a lot better about lightning strikes and surge in general, because for a little bit there I was feeling a little scared.
Did you say surge in general?
He did just say surge in general.
Did say surge.
Surge in general. Let's go.
Awesome.
Let's go. Shameless plug for the good old Surgeon General. So if you're out there watching, Mr. Surgeon General, you're welcome.
Make sure you protect.
Is this right now
your
where I admit
device.
that I'm not sure who our Surgeon General currently is?
I don't know. I don't know either. That's why I didn't say his name.
I know it's not Fauci, but
Yeah. That was awesome. Thanks so much. I really appreciate. Shout out to our quasi-expert panel here for helping us out on surge protections. Makes me feel a lot better. If you ever have questions or need help in terms of IP security equipment and protecting them or mitigating that surge risk, please contact SCW. All of our contact info will be in the description below, along with any of the resources that we referenced or mentioned today. Really appreciate it. Thank everyone for their time again, and we'll see you next week for another session.
Yeah.
bye.
Thanks so much.